Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Note Center, everything about real estate investing. And today we have Dr. Ivan Terrero here from Florida, and we're going to talk about 10 reasons note deals could go bad. So what do you have in mind with that, Dr. Ivan?
Well, just like every investment carries a risk, note investments also carry risks that are unique to that space. And I just wanted to review 10 reasons why a note investment deal can go bad or things to look out for. Okay.
Okay, what's number one on your list?
Number one on the list, the first one is default. The borrower may fail to make payments as agreed, lending to a partial or complete loss of the investment. Of course, this also happens with any other type of investment that you would want to incur. And you have to do your due diligence to make sure that the borrower does not default on the note investment.
So you mean make sure you understand who the borrower is?
We have to make sure who the borrower is, and that would be doing basically a background check, a credit check,
Yeah,
talking to employers, talking to anyone that may know him to see about that person's character. So again, this is a part of the due diligence package that we need to do.
Okay, all right. Is that now we're going to number two?
The second one is economic downturn. Economic recessions or downturns can lead to increase in defaults as borrowers struggle to meet their obligations. Let's say that the borrower is employed in a certain industry that has higher risks of default. Let's say the borrower was working for is working in a town that has only two employers or two large employers.
Right.
And one of the employers, his employer, goes out of business, then that person is out of a job. Or because of an economic downturn, the borrower's employer may decide to downsize the firm in order to save money. And we've seen that happen in these last years.
Yeah, for sure. With COVID-19, lots of people, their economic situation changed pretty much overnight. And as you're saying, with a small town, I'm in a small town now, and there's only a couple of industries really, and when one of them closes, it has a larger ripple effect than in a bigger city where there's a lot of companies going.
True, very true.
Yeah,
very true.
So what's number three on your list?
Number three on my list is poor underwriting. If the lender didn't adequately assess the borrower's creditworthiness or collateral value, it may result in higher default rates. And underwriting is a term that we use to see if the borrower and the property has the value and if the property has the value that is stated, and if the borrower has the capacity to pay back the loan. And so there are specialists that offer those services, and it may seem like it is expensive, a large upfront expense, but as someone who has gone through one default, I think it's well worth that investment.
Are you talking about a situation where you may need to resell the property and it's actually worth less than you think it is?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. For example, we did a fix and flip just before COVID hit, and by the time the property was ready to sell, the actual underwriter came up with a lower value that we had assigned to that property before COVID, which is very strange because a lot of properties actually increased in value, but this property actually decreased in value. And I guess that had to do, again, with the neighborhood it was in.
The neighborhood, sometimes the bylaw too can be that, maybe you can't do something on the property that you might want to do. So, yeah. Okay, so what's the
All right.
next one on your list?
The next one is insufficient collateral. So if the note is secured by a collateral that decreases in value or is insufficient over the loan amount, the lender may face losses in case of default. Again, this goes to the fix and flip that I did. Our calculation based on the area comparables was a certain dollar amount, but by the time the flip was finished, the market value of that area and of the property decreased. So we actually lost money on that fix and flip. Yeah, it could be something simple as, let's say you're in a up and coming neighborhood, and or there are rumors that a certain employer is going to come into the neighborhood, and all of a sudden people are buying properties there as speculating on the properties are going up in value, and then the news comes out, no, that this employer is not going into that area, so those values would decrease.
Yes.
We see that a lot. We saw that a lot in 2008 and 2009. Up to 2008, there was a lot of speculators in Florida buying empty lots, thinking that they would go up forever.
Yeah, and it doesn't always work that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then, of course, 2008 hits, and then all the property values decreased. And actually, we're seeing that today because of higher interest rates. A lot of the property values in many states are decreasing because of the higher interest rates.
Yeah, people can't afford to buy them.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to my next uh, reason why a note investment could go bad, and that's interest rate risk. Changes in interest rate can affect the attractiveness of the note, potentially reducing its market value or leading prepayment risk if interest rates decrease. So again, we were at historic lows in interest rates, and interest rates went up very quickly during one year, and right now interest rates as of today are around 7%. But if you look at historically, this is where interest rates have been historically for the last 40 or 50 years.
Yes, it's sort of returned to a normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just that we were so used to having cheap credit, cheap interest rates for so long that we thought those rates were going to last a long time. But because of inflation, the Fed decided to increase the borrowing rate, the Fed rate, and now it is more expensive to buy a house. When houses become more expensive because of interest rate differences, when houses become less expensive because of interest rate increases.
Right. Do you remember the years when the interest rates were about 18 or 19%?
I remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
Yes, that was a different time for sure.
That was in a galaxy long ago and far away.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
People can't even hardly believe that now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so what's next on your list?
The next one on my list is fraud. In some cases, borrowers may engage in fraudulent activities, such as misrepresenting their financial situation or providing false collateral, leading to losses for the lender. It's amazing how you can actually go on the internet and produce a false W-2 and false pay stubs, which is incredible in my mind. And you can actually find people that are willing to lie as far as a housing evaluation, which is, again, it boggles the mind. And what this does, it increases costs for everybody because people are lying in these cases.
Right.
And because of fraud, then this can lead to losses for the lender.
And that's takes quite a bit of work to detect that, I'm sure.
Yes. That actually happened to me once where I lent money on for a fix and flip as a private money lender. I did my due diligence, and when I did my due diligence, after the borrower defaulted, I found out that his assessments that he obtained were fraudulently obtained. So You live and you learn.
You live and you learn. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So what's on the next item?
The next one is legal and regulatory issues. Legal disputes, regulatory changes, or non-compliance with laws and regulation can disrupt the repayment process or result in litigation, affecting the outcome of an investment. Again, I go back to a fix and flip. Let's say the flipper has a once the inspection is done, the inspection is finds that the work was not up to the standards. It's for the fix and flipper to remedy that situation. Okay. And if the situation is not remedied, the county may go into the property and assess and give um, um, what's the word I'm searching for? Penalties for not fixing these situations.
So we have that situation in British Columbia in Canada here. We have a shortage of rental housing.
Okay.
And long-term rental housing. So they decided to put more restrictions on short-term rentals like VRBO and what's the other one?
Airbnb.
Airbnb, right? So people who, and I know people who bought properties and condos for use with B&B, and now they can't use it for that purpose, or they think they won't be able to when these regulations come in. I think it's by each city has the option of whether they implement the ruling or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it does change the dynamics and the financial scene for the people who have invested in properties for that purpose. So that's a regulatory change that might not go in your favor.
And we're seeing that lately. A lot of municipalities, again in Canada and the United States, are changing the rules regarding short-term rentals, which is represented by Airbnb and Vrbo, that they're not allowing the short-term rentals in their town or city. And again, that changes the valuation of the property.
Yes.
The cash flow.
It means there'll be a bunch of more properties on the market now because people will be selling.
Yes, could be. Yeah. Or people might convert those properties from short-term rental to medium-term rentals or even long-term rentals.
Yeah, yeah, and that'd be a likely thing, is it just change their model somewhat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so what's next on your hit parade?
On the hit parade, market conditions. Okay, changes in market conditions such as shift in property values for real estate-backed notes or fluctuations in commodity prices for commodity-backed notes can impact the performance of the investment, or even notes backed by commercial notes. Let's just say that a note, say you write a note on a business that does car repairs. Let's say that something happens in that area where the car repair shop cannot work. Let's say there's a flood. Let's say there's a hurricane or a tornado, some act of God where the business has to close or suffer some repairs. That will affect the value of that property, and then again, that will affect the property of the note.
Okay. So Florida knows a little bit about that kind of thing.
Yes, we in Florida know about hurricanes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
One of my clients had an art gallery in Delray Beach, Florida, and they ended up moving to Boca Raton to because they got tired of being hammered by the hurricanes. So, where they moved was less vulnerable to the hurricane, but it also didn't have the same cachet as the original location.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And generally, properties that are closer to the water have a higher value than properties that are more inland, but yet properties that are close to the water are more susceptible to hurricanes versus properties that are more inland, like in Florida.
Yeah.
I guess in Canada you have to deal with snow.
Yeah, we have to deal with snow in some parts, and we have on the West Coast we could get storms with lots of water, rains.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of like Vancouver is highly protected by various islands, including Vancouver Island. So we don't get the same. We're not exposed like Oregon and California is to open storms, but still the west coast of Vancouver Island and all those island communities have to worry about tsunamis and and big storms. Not. I think they tend to call them typhoons in the Pacific rather than hurricanes, but
Yes. Yep.
but it's still the same thing.
Still the same thing, just a different name.
And then other places are, well, the Midwest is prone to tornadoes and
Yes.
hailstorms and that kind of thing. Other kinds of bad weather. So yeah, I noticed when we were driving down Florida, it's sort of like the most vulnerable are the poor, like the trailer parks and things like that, because the other places they'll build massive houses ready to withstand hurricanes, and one thing I noticed is raised buildings where the waters can flow underneath the building without taking the building down. So there's nothing that money couldn't prevent damage from, but it's still a factor for sure.
Mm-hmm. So the next one on my list is lack of due diligence. Inadequate research and due diligence on the part of the investor can result in investing in notes with hidden risk or unfavorable terms. Again, it's research, research, and research.
Yeah.
Dig under every rock. Find second opinions on the investor, on the borrower, so that you can avoid these things.
For sure. I think it's a big list, and you probably have a list that you go through, and you every more thorough you are, the less risk you have. As you said, there's some things you may not be able to avoid completely, but you can reduce the chances of them taking you down.
Yeah, I give the example of the note I created for a fix and flipper in Florida. I didn't do my sufficient due diligence. I think because I had lent that person some money previously and he paid me back, so we had a relationship, but I let my guard down. But
Right.
again, will that happen? I will research, ask for bank statements, ask for referrals, and making sure that my investment is safe.
Yeah. In one of your points, you said sometimes the economic conditions change, and that can change for the borrower. They may be in a perfectly good position to honor their agreements, and then either some kind of mishap or loss of employment or something, and then they can't. And so so you have to be prepared for that if that happens, I think.
Exactly. So the last one is lack of diversification. Concentrating investments in one single type of a note or within a narrow sector can increase risk exposure, as adverse developments in that sector can significantly impact the overall investment portfolio. So if you're only investing in single-family homes, let's say in Georgia, and you're only investing in a certain type of a neighborhood, if something can happen in that neighborhood, or with the employer, or with the any economic factors, you can lose part of your money. So it's imperative that you diversify your investments to include different geographical zones, different types of notes, whether it's Class A, Class B, or Class C notes, whether it is single family notes or notes on commercial notes on businesses, or even notes on commodities. Again, diversification is key. I think Warren Buffett said that you should put all your eggs in one basket, but watch that basket like a hawk. I think the same thing applies to notes. You can invest in notes, but watch your investment carefully.
No, that's very good advice. I think Desi Arnaz talked about, like, if you're going to invest in a note and you only had one note, you had to be really careful with that and make sure you've got a well-performing note. But if you've got a diversified collection, a portfolio of notes and other investments that are diversified, then your risk is going to be less, and also the impact of one of them going south is less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, that protects you, like you said, when you're well diversified. If one note becomes non-payable or non-performing, then the other notes can lessen that impact of that one note that's not performing.
The way I think way Desi put it, if you were going to stay up all night worrying about it, then you probably shouldn't invest in it.
Exactly. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So
now we can go back to see all the 10 reasons why a note investing go bad. The first one is default.
Okay.
A borrower may fail to make payments as agreed. The second one is economic downturn. Economic recessions or downturns can lead to increased defaults. Poor underwriting. The fourth one is insufficient collateral. The fifth one is interest rate risk. The sixth one is fraud. The second one is legal and regulatory issues. The eighth one is market conditions. The ninth one is lack of due diligence, and the 10th one is lack of diversification.
Okay. So now that we've partially scared everybody, what are the reasons why you would invest in notes, even because of these 10 things you have to watch out for?
Well, why would I invest in notes? The first one is it is a passive investment. Once you make the investment, you can sit and collect money on a monthly basis. Okay. Second, you don't have to deal with what I call the 3 T's: the tenants, toilets, and termites, or tenants, toilets, and trash. The other reason is that three, diversification. You can invest in short-term notes, you can invest in long-term notes, you can invest in notes backed by single-family homes, multifamily homes, notes on commercial properties. The other one is that there are more sophisticated ways to make money on a note by selling a partial. And you may look at this as something bad. If the note defaults, what happens is that you can actually take back the property and start the process all over again. So in a way, you can double dip on your note.
Okay. So on Saturday, when we were talking about these things, I think we got another T thrown into the termites and trash and toilets. Is our guest had to leave suddenly because a tree fell on one.
Tree, exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the tree fell into one of the houses, and in this case, his company owned the house, and I don't know if the bank owned if he owned the note, but think of it this way: as a note holder, if he was a note holder, he would still be responsible for paying that mortgage to the bank. Again, one of the advantages of being a note holder is that you're not involved in the day-to-day operations of that property.
Right. So for people who are interested in real estate investing but don't necessarily want to get into the weeds with these things, do you have an offer for passive investors?
We have an offer for passive investors. We can offer 8% return on their investment backed by a hard asset, in this case, which is real estate. So the investments are totally passive. Once you make that investment and you designate where you want the money to be deposited, we deposit that money in that account.
Okay. That sounds like a pretty good deal.
I think so.
Yeah.
And you actually get title to the property. You actually are on the title. So
okay.
In case that the borrower defaults, the property goes back to you, and you start the process all over again.
Okay. So minimal risk.
Minimal risk, yes. Nothing's guaranteed except, of course, death and taxes.
Yes. Okay. Any last words for today?
Nope. You can reach out at my website, www.thenotedoctor.com. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram yet, but we're working on that.
Okay. Well, fabulous. Thank you very much, Dr. Ivan.
Thank you.